Imagine someone whose day job involves um, untangling literally thousands of conflicting corporate IT systems, like managing a $3 billion web of data and preventing the kind of gridlock that could totally bring a Fortune 100 company to its knees.
Right. And then, on the weekends, they're stepping out of that server room and strapping into a Corvette C8 Z06, just tearing around a racetrack, pushing the car to its absolute physical limit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And if that's not intense enough, recently having to apply those exact same survival mechanics to a stage 3 cancer diagnosis.
It's just an incredible contrast. You've got the invisible, abstract weight of massive digital systems on one hand, and then the deeply physical, visceral reality of gravity and, well, human biology on the other.
So for today's deep dive, we are unpacking the life, the career, and really the entire philosophy of Jesse Myer. He's an enterprise architect, an AI practitioner, and a motorsports media company co-owner.
And the mission here is really to extract his blueprint for navigating absolute chaos. Because his approach is fiercely pragmatic. It's a zero wishful thinking way to find a clear path when, everything around you feels completely out of control.
Right, and we're pulling from a pretty detailed stack of sources today. We've got his personal about page, his highly detailed 2026 professional resume, and his long-running blog, which is called Perspective.
And I think the reason this matters to you, the listener, is because we all deal with overwhelming systems, right?
Yeah.
You might not be migrating a 2 petabyte corporate data center, but you are absolutely managing unexpected disruptions,
Oh, for sure.
like chaotic projects or sudden personal crises. Finding clarity when the telemetry goes dark is, well, it's a universal requirement.
It totally is. And to understand how someone develops that kind of operational clarity at such a massive scale, we kind of have to look at the environment that forged them.
Yeah, you definitely don't learn to master extreme high-stakes complexity by just sitting in a comfortable room.
No, you don't. And his early life was uniquely chaotic. So he was born in Texas to these 1970s hippie transplant parents from New York. And actually, he suspects they were heavily influenced by the movie Roadhouse, which is pretty funny.
That's great.
Yeah, and his family tree even dates back to this thing called the Pig War in modern-day New York City. But he grew up as an army brat, so that meant constant movement.
Extreme environments, really.
Exactly. One year he's hanging out at the Tank Museum at Fort Knox, and then the next he's just dropped into Fairbanks, Alaska.
And surviving in Fairbanks requires a very specific kind of situational awareness. I mean, it's not a forgiving place.
No, not at all. He remembers walking to school in, like, negative 40-degree blizzards. And there's this one Alaskan survival rule he learned back then that I think perfectly frames his entire career.
Okay, what is it?
The rule is basically, you can outrun a moose, but you can't outrun a bear.
I love that. I mean, it sounds like a joke, but underneath it, that is a masterclass in risk assessment.
Right. Because it's about specificity.
Exactly. You can't just look at a massive, unpredictable environment and label everything as a generic threat. If you react to a moose the same way you react to a bear, you might not survive that encounter.
Yeah, you have to understand the specific mechanics of the system you're facing. It's pure pragmatism.
Mm-hmm.
And right around this time in Alaska, he gets his first real exposure to tech.
Through flight simulators, right.
Yeah, he'd go to his dad's military detachment and play these microprose flight sims with the guys there, games like Apache and Falcon. So he gets totally hooked on the technology.
But then things take a pretty brutal turn.
They do. The family moves to Columbus, Ohio, and while Jesse is still in high school, he loses both of his parents to cancer.
Which is just, I mean, that's the ultimate systemic collapse of a family unit and happening at one of the most vulnerable stages of human development.
Yeah, it's unimaginable.
When the foundational structures of your reality evaporate like that, the human instinct is often to just spiral.
But his response was to bury himself in early internet culture. We're talking the era of CompuServe, AOL, Prodigy. He taught himself HTML 1.0 on free hosts like GeoCities and Tripod.
Building digital sanctuaries.
That's exactly how it feels. When his physical world fell apart and became totally uncontrollable, he used code to build a sanctuary. Because HTML's logical, you know. If you close your tags properly, the structure holds. The rules actually make sense.
It's a space where variables can finally be managed. But what's fascinating is that this sanctuary also became a proving ground. Building those personal web pages rapidly evolved into, well, guarding a digital metropolis.
Right, because he lands a quality assurance position at AOL while he's in college. And we really have to frame what AOL was that time.
Oh, it was massive.
Yeah, they had over 100 million active users globally on their instant messenger platform. The scale is almost hard to comprehend now because we're so used to everything being huge, but back then, it was unprecedented.
And at that volume, a tiny flaw isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a cascading failure for millions of people.
Exactly. He was developing automated testing programs, building KPI frameworks, and he explicitly notes this era as his foundational lesson in what it means to build software where failure is simply not an option.
It completely hardwired his understanding of critical infrastructure. And it actually derailed his traditional university path, right?
Yeah, he dropped out of Ohio State's computer science program. He said the academic environment just couldn't keep pace with what he was doing in the real world.
I mean, it makes sense.
He wrote that it felt absurd to sit in a class learning proprietary C++ from a textbook when literally hours later he's at work coding in C# and AJAX on a global platform.
And the shift from C++ to AJX is crucial context here, because AJX allowed web pages to update dynamically in real time. You don't have to refresh the whole page.
Great, it made the internet feel alive.
Exactly. And learning to manipulate that kind of live, dynamic architecture on the fly, you just can't simulate that in a lecture hall. He learned by being in the trenches.
And that trench work is what transitions him from, building those early digital sanctuaries to fixing massive corporate empires.
Which brings us to his core professional identity.
Enterprise architect.
Yeah, enterprise architect. Now, I have to admit, when I hear that title, it sounds like the ultimate corporate buzzword.
Oh, absolutely.
It conjures this image of a guy in a suit drawing abstract boxes on a whiteboard, making up these mythical standards that the actual engineers just completely ignore.
It's a notoriously misunderstood discipline. And Jesse himself admits that early in his career, he viewed the architect as this mythical figure decreeing rules from the clouds. But his actual methodology is the complete opposite of that. He calls his approach enterprise architecture archaeology.
I love that term.
Because corporate information, as he writes on his blog, is usually clear as mud. So somebody has to physically get their hands dirty.
Right, you have to sift through the strata, the decades of legacy decisions, the weird workarounds, the patched code, just to find the actual truth of how a company operates.
Yeah, and he compares this kind of digital transformation to urban planning theories. So, ask the listener to imagine this. He's not just an IT guy. He's an urban planner trying to fix a sprawling, chaotic metropolis.
And he's not just looking at a map. He's the person tasked with figuring out why a 20-year-old billing software in Ohio is suddenly causing a brand new mobile app in Tokyo to crash.
Wow, yeah.
The digital city he's managing might have 2,000 different road systems and 1,200 utility providers all tangled together. And the ultimate catch is you can't shut the city down while you fix the gridlock.
Because the revenue has to keep flowing.
Exactly. The business must keep running.
And that is precisely the tightrope he walked at Waste Management between 2016 and 2017. He was the chief architect for their national accounts, which is a line of business generating over $3 billion annually.
$3 billion. That is not a small sandbox.
No. And through this rigorous architectural archaeology, he actually identified and forecasted a massive platform overload long before it triggered a catastrophic outage.
The real-world implications of that are staggering. I mean, if a $3 billion waste management system goes offline, we aren't just talking about a website throwing a 404 error page.
Right, it's not just a blank screen.
No, we are talking about literal, physical garbage trucks freezing in place because their logistics routing failed. By identifying that digital bottleneck, he prevented a cascade of physical, real-world chaos.
And he used that momentum to seed an AI and machine learning team there, too. They built Vision AI, which is a system that visually scans for waste overflow across the country.
That's incredible foresight.
Yeah, and he scaled that expertise even further at Lincoln Financial Group, which is where he is currently embedded as an enterprise architect advisor.
And the numbers there are just wild.
Oh, yeah. He's managing an ecosystem of 1,200 vendors and 2,000 internal systems. And he architected the technology side of their $3.3 billion Liberty Life acquisition.
Which involved moving, what, over 2 petabytes of data?
2 petabytes of data to Amazon Web Services across 34 different technology sectors.
Okay, just for context, a single petabyte is roughly equivalent to 20 million tall filing cabinets filled with text.
Good Lord.
Right. Moving 2 of those across dozens of sectors isn't a simple copy-paste job. At that scale, one dropped table or one misaligned data structure can corrupt $1 million transaction.
So how do you even manage that without losing your mind?
Well, he uses a philosophy he calls seeing the vertical.
Seeing the vertical, what does that actually mean in practice?
It's the ability to connect the deepest, most microscopic technical code at the very bottom of the stack to the highest level business revenue at the top.
Uh,
Because a CEO might only see a revenue dashboard, right? And a junior programmer might only see a database query. Jesse's job is to see how a badly written query from 1998 is causing that CEO's dashboard to report $5 million less today.
And then he has to translate that gap so both sides actually understand the fix. Which brings up a really fascinating paradox in his work. Because we've established that Jesse manages these massive, cold, highly technical metropolises. But to get thousands of people to actually adopt a massive technological change, you can't act like a machine.
No, you need extreme human empathy. Because a perfectly engineered system is entirely useless if the humans involved just refuse to use it.
Right. And on his blog, he has this three-part series called Digital Transformation 3.0, and the themes are pretty surprising for an IT executive.
Also so.
Well, he writes about the necessity to adapt or die and destroying corporate silos, but he heavily emphasizes being human and compassionate. He even introduces the concept of enterprise eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia, that's Aristotle's concept of human flourishing, right?
Exactly. He argues that the actual goal of corporate IT systems should be to allow humans to flourish, rather than crushing their souls with friction.
That's a huge shift from traditional IT thinking. Historically, IT views the human as the weakest link, like the chaotic variable that's going to break the software.
Right, user error.
Exactly. But Jesse flips that completely. The human isn't the weak link. The human is the entire purpose of the system.
And to bridge that gap between the tech and the people, he leans heavily into storytelling. He draws inspiration from completely outside the tech bubble.
Like what?
Like studying how Elon Musk pitches the mechanics of batteries, or even looking at the framework of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, D&D. That's amazing.
Yeah. He says a dungeon master guiding a party through a complex, rule-heavy fantasy world requires the exact same narrative skills as an enterprise architect guiding a board of executives through a massive tech migration.
That makes so much sense. You have to make the complexity engaging or you just lose them.
But there is one part of his writing that genuinely confused me at first. It's an apparent contradiction about how that complexity should be presented.
Okay, what is it?
Well, here's a guy who designs massive complex interfaces for a living, right? Yet he has an entire post advocating for zero UI and fictional UIs to engage audiences. Why would a master architect argue for less interface?
It does sound counterintuitive, but it actually points to the absolute pinnacle of architectural design. True mastery of a complex system means making that complexity entirely invisible to the user.
Invisible.
Yeah, when he advocates for zero UI, he means the technology should anticipate the user's needs so seamlessly that the interface essentially evaporates.
Oh, I get it.
Think of a perfectly designed urban subway system. When you use it, you aren't thinking about the engineering of the tunnels or the electrical grid or the logistics of the train schedule. You just get on and it takes you home.
Right, you just want to get to your destination.
Exactly. He wants the user to feel absolutely zero friction, never feeling the weight of the 2000 systems grinding away in the background.
And to achieve that level of invisible complexity, he's relying heavily on modern AI tools today. His resume lists him using Claude, Gemini Pro, Midjourney, Perplexity. But he isn't just dropping buzzwords. He's a true practitioner.
The distinction there is how he uses them. He's not using an AI like Perplexity to simply write code or replace human thought. He treats it as an exoskeleton for his intellect.
An exoskeleton, I like that.
Yeah, imagine a stakeholder asking a highly complex question about a 2000 system merger. Instead of spending 3 weeks manually digging through old server logs and vendor contracts, he feeds the architecture parameters into the model to instantly map the dependencies.
Wow. So he turns weeks of tedious archaeology into like an afternoon of strategic decision-making.
Exactly. AI bridges that widening gap between high-level IT strategy and actual full-stack architecture.
So, okay, we have a really clear picture of how Jesse maps, survives, and optimizes digital environments. But mapping a digital failure is an entirely different discipline than navigating a physical one.
Oh, completely.
And his pragmatic, zero wishful thinking approach was put to the ultimate test when he stepped away from the keyboard and strapped into a machine governed by the laws of physics.
The transition from the theoretical to the deeply visceral.
Yeah. So Jesse and his wife, Savannah, co-own a motorsports and travel media company called Myers Miles. And the ethos of this company is entirely rooted in Jesse's dual identity.
He's not just a photographer standing safely behind a catch fence.
No, not at all. He races his own Corvette C8 Z06, and these arrive and drive Porsche GT3s at iconic, unforgiving tracks like Watkins Glen, Lime Rock, Mid-Ohio.
And because he drives the machines, he understands the physics of the environment he's documenting. He knows the racing line.
Right.
He knows precisely where the braking zones are, and he knows what a car looks, sounds, and feels like in that razor-thin margin when it's operating at its absolute physical limit.
As he puts it, you can't fake that perspective. And they use these incredibly fast FPV chase drones to capture the action. They also deploy advanced tracking telescopes, like the Dwarf 3, to capture astrophotography in the extreme cold of Alaska and the Alps.
And they refuse to batch process their edits.
Exactly. Every single photograph is individually calibrated. No automated shortcuts, because every physical moment and every machine requires specific attention.
Which is the exact same philosophy applied to his corporate architecture. You cannot batch process solutions when you are dealing with complex strata.
But then the ultimate reality check hits. In January of 2025, Jesse was diagnosed with stage 3 esophageal cancer.
Which is really a catastrophic system failure of his own biology.
Yeah. He endured a highly aggressive chemotherapy regimen, 5 rounds of health OT, followed by a major surgery that removed 2/3 of his stomach and his esophagus.
Just brutal.
And I want you, the listener, to just imagine for a second applying the rigorous root cause analysis and disaster recovery protocols that you use at your job to your own mortality.
And this is where that concept of the racing line evolves from just a driving technique into a really profound philosophy for survival.
How so?
Well, if you have ever driven a car at high speed on a track, the fundamental rule is that you must look where you want the car to go, not at the object you are trying to avoid.
Because your hands follow your eyes.
Exactly. If a car spins out in front of you, or if your tires lose grip and you start sliding toward the concrete wall, human instinct screams at you to stare at the wall. You get target fixation.
Right, you panic.
But the physics of driving dictate that if you stare at the wall, you will hit the wall. You have to force your eyes to look far ahead, looking through the turn to find the clear path forward.
So he had to literally find the racing line through a stage 3 cancer diagnosis.
Yes. He couldn't afford wishful thinking, but he also couldn't afford to fixate on the wall of his diagnosis. He had to trust his telemetry, manage the variables he could actually control, and look through the turn.
And the result of that rigorous approach is just remarkable. He returned to work with sharper focus and deeper gratitude. He wrote that the whole physical ordeal tempered his cynicism and proved a vital rule for his life. Be open to help, and people will show up.
People will show up. It perfectly mirrors that moment in high school when he lost his parents and how his godparents and community showed up for him then.
Yeah, in the end, the human element is the ultimate fail-safe.
The human is the purpose of the system, and the community is the redundant backup that catches you when the primary systems fail.
It has been a massive journey tracing this blueprint today. We started with a kid surviving negative 40-degree blizzards in Alaska by learning to accurately assess threats.
Right, the moose and the bear.
Yep. Then we watched him construct digital sanctuaries in early HTML, scale up to guard the massive platforms of AOL, and untangle the billion-dollar legacy architectures of Fortune 100 metropolises.
And then taking that to the track, pushing high-performance machines to their limits and navigating the terrifying disruption of a life-threatening illness.
Through every single environment, the operating system remains the exact same. Rigorous analysis, adapt or die, be fiercely pragmatic, and never lose your humanity.
And the application for all of us is really clear. When you evaluate the legacy systems operating in your own life, whether that's a stagnant career trajectory, a complex relationship, or a chaotic project at work, are you managing those systems with wishful thinking?
Are you just batch processing your days on autopilot?
Exactly. Or are you willing to get your hands dirty, sift through the strata to find the truth, and look through the turn to find your racing line?
That is the ultimate challenge. And to close out this deep dive, there is one final piece of source material from Jesse's personal page that I think perfectly captures the psychological experience of navigating this kind of terrifying complexity.
Yeah, he shows a favorite excerpt from T.H. White's book, The Once and Future King.
Such a powerful image.
It really is. White describes a bird flying high in the sky, approaching a massive flock of cumulus clouds, those towering, seemingly solid mountains of white vapor.
Yeah.
And as the bird gets closer, the cloud looks terrifyingly dense. When it finally enters the cloud, the sun immediately dims. The bird is surrounded by this gray, freezing damp. White actually describes it as entering a space of cold annihilation and chartless nothing.
A total system failure of your senses, just
Yeah.
blinding, suffocating complexity where you have no sense of speed, no up or down.
But the crucial lesson of the excerpt is what happens if the bird simply holds its course, if you don't panic.
Right.
If you trust your trajectory and push through that chartless nothing, suddenly the mist breaks. The sun glows like a copper penny, and in a fraction of a second, you emerge into a jeweled world once more, with the dew of Eden not yet dry.
It is an incredible visual, a jeweled world.
So the question to ponder is this. What blinding chartless clouds are you currently flying through in your own life? And what jeweled world is waiting on the other side if you just have the courage to hold your line?
Untangling the chaos to find a clear path forward. Until next time.